How was everybody's weekend?
Good.
Good.
Very good. How about you?
It was good. We had tons and tons of rain and like ridiculous amounts. And I woke up in the middle of the night and there was just a crack of lightning and thunder and I couldn't get back to sleep. And this is how you know that you're completely domesticated because my first initial thought was, oh my gosh, the chickens. So that's never something I ever thought that I would say.
Oh, I'd love to have chickens.
Oh my gosh, we love the chickens. The chickens are amazing.
Mhm.
Except we've got this one that is basically like a giant velociraptor and he's not a real chicken. Like he's a dinosaur. So the other chickens are normal, but that one's something. Um but today I'm going to jump right into it because it's end of quarter. And I want to ask you a question of how you guys do the work. Are you all high like focus and high pressure at end of quarter, or is it there yet to that point?
I don't think we're there yet.
Not really.
Mm-mm.
Okay, good. So the reason why we focus on quarters and fiscal quarters, it's a little bit to do with finances. It's a little bit to do with cash flow, but it's more or less to deal with accurate forecasting. And so we don't want to necessarily put undue pressure on because sometimes when you're just getting everything cranking and scaling up from a sales perspective and systems, it's you're doing enough by just showing up. Like, you know what I mean? It's like you wake up and you're just going through the processes and we're getting it going. But I do want to address the fact that this is end of quarter. And once we get to a fully functional, streamlined, process-driven sales organization, we will start putting more emphasis behind what it means to be at end of quarter. Brian, good afternoon. Good morning, wherever people are. Hi. So we wanted to, so basically when we're talking about the end of quarter, we want to make sure that we're tracking all of the processes and the opportunities, rather not the processes, the opportunities on a quarter by quarter fashion. And that way it also helps us stay accountable to what we're doing and to moving things in the right direction for like end of month. And if it's in our HubSpot, or if it is in our Odoo or our Salesforce or whatever, it's going to be tracked appropriately. And then we can keep ourselves accountable and move things out if you don't think it's going to close for an end of month, end of quarter scenario. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Cool.
Yes, I have a question though.
Yeah.
So if we're building our pipelines the right way and everything's moving along, at some point, end of quarter, end of month doesn't really matter because the stuff is all flowing and going through, correct? Sorta?
That's a really good question, actually. So no,
Thank
I
you.
was I was told, sidebar, I was told in my Kaseya days by one of my absolute favorite people. His name is Frank. He told me, he was like, you're not supposed to say something's a good question because that implies that there could be a bad question out there. And I was like, oh, you're probably right. But at the same time, it was a really good question because I want to focus on, from a sales perspective, you're right. It really shouldn't matter, right? Brian, I hear you. Thank you. From a sales perspective, it really shouldn't matter because you're running your pipeline the right way. You're not sandbagging. Does everybody know what sandbagging means?
Yes, not adding sales that you think might close that are not really going to close.
Right. Or adding things that you think might, just so that you have a pipeline, and then you're just pushing things out to sort of inflate. One thing that I've noticed is that salespeople and people in general, they will do exactly what they are incentivized to do, whether it is a behavior, whether it is an extra, a bonus, a commission, whatever it is. So as managers, it's our jobs to help foster the correct way to approach sales. So Stacy, yes, in perfect rainbow unicorn land where all salespeople are not necessarily thinking, feeling, emotive humans. Yes, that would be 100% right. But the problem is that we're all humans and we all are going to do what we're incentivized to do and do what our processes compel us to do. That basically means at the end of the month or the end of the quarter, at some point, you're going to feel more pressure because you are incentivized to close more at the end of these cycles. If you're doing it right, you're hitting your goals prior to the end of the quarter anyways. So it's not as stressful, but it's funny. You'll actually see on our social media, there's probably going to be an end of quarter meme. You know, I just literally did a pulse check for one of our clients and I just said, hey, we're just doing a pulse check. How's everybody feeling? Because they put a ton of pressure on these team members at the end of the month and end of the quarter based on what is expected of them because we track success by quarterly fiscal goals. So, Stacy, does that clarify?
Well, yes, it does.
Okay, cool. So one of the things that we want to talk about today specifically for our coaching call and for what we want to do from Brian, got it. Cool. All right. So which Brian, you may shed a little bit of former knowledge on this from enterprise sales, right? On enterprise sales, how high was stress for you at end of quarter, end of month?
Oh, it was pretty high.
It was pretty high.
We had to have some good things in the pipeline at least to convince them to keep, us on.
Right.
So if you could at
Right.
least show that a conversation was going on and things were moving forward, that was good.
Right. And I'm not here to scare anybody, right? Because again, we're meeting you right where you are on the sales spectrum for all of the organizations that you all represent. The issue is that you do have to track those things. And because you're now tracking, or hopefully now you're tracking from a monthly or quarterly basis, and you have specific goals that you need to achieve, which I know we have not gone into specific goal setting. And I will get to that at some point soon. I just figured that it was an appropriate time to talk about end of quarter because we're here. So when we're talking about hitting goals and you are mapping out what needs to be accomplished, it's just like putting a to-do list together, right? So as salespeople, and you have to go through, and Tony Robbins calls it treasure hunting, right? Like just banging on the phones and making sure that you're catching enough in the pipeline and really searching out for those treasures. What we're doing on the monthly quarterly is we're tracking our to-do list. And what that means is we have to figure out exactly how much we need in the pipeline in order to hit the goals that we have sort of put in place. That does not mean that we are adjusting the goals if we can't hit them. It means that we have to adjust what we're doing. And it's also about setting realistic goals. Everybody give me a hand raise if you understand how to set a realistic goal for yourself versus too far ahead, unrealistic. Stacy, I got a thumbs up from you. Angela's a thumbs up. All right, cool. We'll work on the other Hi, Steven, we got a thumbs up. Cool. So what we want to do is we want to not only understand what our goal is for the quarter, and if you haven't done this before, that's totally fine because it also allows you to make your to-do list for the upcoming quarter. So at the end of the quarter, you are closing everything you possibly can, and you are pushing things out that are not going to close this quarter. And again, Angela, I know the pressure isn't on you right now for that quarterly performance, but at least it helps you track so you can go back and look inside of HubSpot and say, you know what, this isn't going to close this month. Let me go ahead and push it out so that at least from a data scrubbing and a data hygiene specific standpoint, you're clear. Make sense?
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So let's go ahead, and I want to go over a little bit of how to focus that to-do list and how that should be shaped. And then we'll open up the floor a little bit for anybody that has any sort of hair on fire that needs a little bit of help on specific deals. Does that work for everyone? Okay.
Yes. Thanks.
So for making your to-do list, and it is your monthly to-do list, obviously you have to know kind of what the target is. And again, we will address how to set that target if you haven't set that target for yourself, or if the CEO or the financial officer or your CTO or your CFO or whoever it is hasn't figured out how to set that goal for you. We're going to do that together. But to make your to-do list, what you want to do is you want to set that barometer, you want to set that goal. And then essentially you want to figure out what it's going to take to 5x that goal so that you have enough in the pipeline to hit it. If you don't have 5x in the pipeline, then you know exactly what you need to do. You need to go and build the pipeline. If you have over 5x, but something isn't closing, then you need to revisit something else in the sales cycle and in that sequence of events of what you're doing, because something's not closing. So that's how you start mapping the success rate of your quarter to quarter performance, which is why we use quarters as well. It's not just because fiscal year works off of quarters, it's because it gives you benchmarks. Similar to how some people need to get that associate's degree, and then you need to get your bachelor's, and then you get your master's. You get those little 2-year increments, and you're hitting those goals and just kind of knocking them down one by one by one. Same thing in sales. So in order to do your to-do list, what you want to do is you want to get a mix of the big deals that take a little bit longer, the smaller deals, like those SMB deals. Especially this is for you, Brian, because you are coming from such a different modality, and you haven't quite figured out where you need to focus all your attention yet. Also for you, Stephen, when you're scaling up to another echelon of service, I guess, it's really important that you have this mix, or else you will fall flat on your face, and it'll be quarter by quarter you'll start seeing failures. And I don't want you to see failures, I want you to see successes. So what we're going to do is we're going to essentially look at how long it takes to close certain deals. Angela, this might be a little bit different for you because you're now expanding on your revenue source. So for a while there, you had a very specific, like, this is what we offer, right? It was like $5,000, $5,000, $5,000, right? You need a lot of $5,000 to hit a goal on a quarterly basis, right? Yeah. So I'm getting thumbs up for those of you that can't see. So essentially what we need to do is we need to take a look at those offerings. So at the very beginning of you all starting with us, you had that menu of services, and you had the tiers and the offerings that we went through, and you can see the tiers of service and the size of the deals and who your target audience is and your target market and the people that you need to actually close. So now I want you to go a step further. I want you to track how long certain deals take to close. And that's going to help you map your to-do list. So for example, I'm going to use this in software terms, because this is my back to basics, my very, 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 very first IT sales gig. The way that I had to hit $85,000 per month of sales at a software company. And it sounds like a lot, but it really wasn't that much because I was selling to larger organizations. The average small sale was $7,000, $9,000. Then the middle guy was kind of in that $24,000 range. And then you would get really big ones that were, 60, 65. I knew that the 60, 65s, I was going to get one of those maybe twice a year based on selling cycles. It could be something that's 65,000, it could be 125,000, it could be 300,000. But I knew once I hit that threshold, because I started tracking, once I hit that threshold of being above 65,000, it would take me 6 months to close it. So I already knew that those large guys were the ones that I had to sort of map out. That if I've had it in the pipeline for 3 months, I got another 3 months on that, or else I might get lucky, but it's going to be another 3 months. Then I went for the littler guys, that sort of SMB crew, and that was for the 20,000s. I would then say, okay, how many of those would I need to close to hit all of my number, right? So then that would normally take me like 3 months in pipeline to close, maybe 4 if I was pushing it, or if there was a larger process or a longer process for decision makers. And then I had these little pops where it was like 7 grand, 5 grand, 3 grand, you have these little guys. The way we used to talk about it was as if we were hunters, and it was totally fine for me because I grew up in the Midwest. So hunting animals was totally fine. So if you are offended about this, we can change it to something else. We can hunt berries. I don't care. But for hunting season, we would talk about bears versus deer versus rabbits, right? You can't live off of rabbits alone. You need constant sort of diet of deer. But you're not going to turn down a bear. You just know that that's going to be for hibernating. So it'll see you through, right? It'll see you through the winter. It'll see you through a little bit. So does this kind of resonate with everybody from how to track your to-do list and how to start measuring and tracking your sales cycles so you can start seeing how many you need to hit your goals and what you need to do to adjust? Steve saying yes. Angela, I'm not sure. Stacy, yes. Brian, does this resonate? We're going to go with a yes. All right.
Yes, I typed yes, sorry, didn't.
Oh, did you? Okay. So from there, I want you all
There
to
it is.
do, I see it now. So while we prep for next month, because some of you have enough pipeline to get through this week and have a really strong quarter. So I'm happy to discuss any sales, anything that you're doing. But this week, I also want you focused on what's closing, what's not closing. Let's push everything out inside of our CRM systems so that if it's not going to close, we know it's not going to close. And then we're taking steps to close them for next quarter so we can forecast appropriately and forecast the right way. Everybody can do this week? Okay, cool. From a planning out perspective, I just want your actually Steve, you're on right now. I want your insight as to, because he's a numbers guy and he's really good at his numbers. So I bet you he knows what I'm about to ask. Sales cycle. he's like, oh God, sales cycle. And if you guys don't know, I'm not putting anybody on blast. This is good for you to know. And if you don't know, that's fine. I want you to go back and find out. But sales cycles, Stephen, where are you if you were looking at the rabbits, the deer, and the bear?
Just number wise, quantity?
Not quantity, the sales cycle. How long does it take?
Oh, how for each one of those categories?
Yep.
So the larger ones, those can take 6 months to a year.
Mm-hmm. And what are the sizes of those, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, they're 60 plus endpoints, 300 endpoints, whatever, something between that.
So 60 to 300 endpoints.
60 to 300, yeah. And then they're typically looking at, they have a current contract, they're reviewing other contracts, they're just trying to, get that. And then they usually take about 6 months to a year because they're evaluating, and then and then eventually it goes through. So it does take time. And then the smaller ones, usually it could be right away, it could be the same day.
Right.
We had a couple last week that same day. I'm like, okay, sure. It's twice in one day. It was kind of weird. So I was like,
nice.
okay. So yeah, we got some quick wins. Those are small. Those are like 5 to 10 systems, right? Very small. But yeah, those
were one call closes.
Yeah, those are single call closes. Yeah.
Nice job.
Yeah. Yes, it was easy. I like those when they're easy, but yeah, you're right in that philosophy. I like your analogy.
I know I'm probably going to piss a lot of people off because they're just like, Pete is going to come after me, but
it's necessary, right?
It's
life,
you can't live off of the rabbits, but they're really good and they keep you motivated, right? Those little bunnies.
Yeah. And actually we improve a lot of our process because of those, because we're turning in and we're turning the crank essentially, and it's helping us improve the bigger ones too. So
yep, absolutely. Yeah. And then what about those mid-range, or are you getting enough of those?
Mid-range, those I would say between like 30 to 60. So those take about a month or 2, 3 to close approximately.
Okay. So you're kind of looking at the same range that I was on my first sales gig. It was either the 6 month to a year, you're going to get one or two of those if
Yeah.
if you're lucky, like, and then you've got the others, right, on the sales cycle. So if that's the case, and I know what your target is right now, so it's not fair of me to ask this, but based on the target that you have set for yourself, do you have enough of the deer to sustain you to go after the deer, or are you going to have to bring yourself a lot more bunnies and tiny little, game?
Yeah, so just because of our situation right now, we haven't had time. Right now, time's a little bit crazy.
Right.
But next month, I think obviously next quarter gonna be a lot better.
Mhm.
We just finally finished or finishing a huge project, but I could say, it's not gonna be our strongest quarter, but we can, we're still pulling in sales. So I mean, it's to hit our goal would be pretty tough. It would be pretty tough.
Yep.
So I mean, we would have to hit maybe 2 deer essentially
Yeah.
to hit our goal. Yeah.
So if you had to hit 2 deer, that means you need 10 of them really in the pipeline for you to hit 2. And they have to be at least 2.5 months old for you to hit it next month. Or it could be, are you saying you have to hit 2 of them next quarter or 2 of them next month?
Oh, to hit our goal, if we set our goal for this week, I guess you could say, to end the quarter,
Mhm.
yeah, it would be 2 deer. If you want to consider it for the next quarter, then it would
I'm looking
be,
for next quarter.
yeah, okay, next quarter, then yeah, we can hit it with, 4 deer essentially.
Okay. All right.
Just
So that means you need 4 of those, which means you need to 5x that.
yeah,
Or you can now start seeing, okay, now how many leads do I need of rabbits to kind of keep us eating, right? We can't make dinner off of it every night, but we can have a good solid breakfast and it'll carry us over while we work the pipeline, because guaranteed you don't have the pipeline to have 4 deer hit all in one quarter. You could get lucky and get a bear, right?
Yeah. Well,
So
the bear I was looking for was actually MGM.
that would be amazing.
I
So
was like, I'm trying to like get in there, but they don't know what they're doing. It's like,
yeah.
they're just like trying to cost. It's so weird. They are such a weird company. But anyway, I don't want to get into it, but they have no idea. They're so lost.
So then here's my question, because you just did a really easy layup for me, and I promise I did not pay him to do this, guys. So if you're trying to get in because they're your bear, right?
Yeah.
You need 25 deer in order to hit your 4 deer pipeline. You don't really have that right now, but you can still work on it. But if you're going to go ahead and you're going to prospect a couple of those bears, right? You need 2 bears a year, and you'd be pretty good. So if you need 2 bears a year and we're 5xing that, so you need 10 bears in your pipeline and you need 25 deer, and then you probably need about 100 little rabbits, right? So if you're going to go for the bear and you want to start the process, how are you going to prospect them, and where are you finding the intel to get into those, and how are you having the conversation versus how you would do that for a deer?
Yeah, it's really different. So usually it starts with a need. So usually it comes from somebody who I know, or somebody. Those big ones usually are based on industry needs and what's available. So kind of like looking at, okay, this company is in dire need. They just got hacked or whatever, right? So I'll just use them because that's fresh in my memory. So we can pursue it, and we can because they're looking, it's a little bit easier. But usually companies are looking for other things. They're looking for maybe reducing some costs, or reducing some of the infrastructure they have to cloud. There's always some need that they're looking for. So we're just kind of honing in on those and kind of trying to work on prospecting in that way. But it usually comes in with a lead, I guess.
So when they're exhibiting a need, and Angela, I want you paying attention to this too, because with the the vulnerability CTO consulting, this is where you're going to start seeing those prospects. Steve, are you seeing this in like an RFP, or how are they asking for help? Or are you just Google alerting and saying, "Oh,
yeah,
got
really just kind of like Googling, doing some of our just our inside work. But yeah, it's really just getting referral leads from other areas and just kind of going that direction. Haven't really found a method that constantly works, but usually just kind of hearing from other people and staying in touch with a bunch of IT directors and stuff like that. So
Yep. And then do you have any warm intros into those those bears? You do?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, perfect.
So yeah, they're there. It's just, trying to convince them. It's difficult. A lot of them have a very, depending on yeah, there's a lot of factors, right? I mean, but sometimes we're going against like older bears, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
And they're just stuck to their ways, and they just don't understand, new thinking, and so it's hard. So, but yeah, we're kind of running against some of those. But eventually, they have our information. They've opened the door to us, so they're open. So eventually, it kind of turns around. And I had a lot of deals go down like this, where it's like later down the road, they'll call us out of the blue. Hey, we have this project. Can you do something? Yeah, of course. And then we kind of get in that way. So
Right. And that's what I kind of wanted you to, I swear, I'm not really actually paying him to do this, but he's like easy layups. This is great. So one of the ways that we can get in there is basically a proof of concept, right? This is the same way in software, in services. We want a quick win, and we want to do a proof of concept first. So it's almost like they're dating us before they get married. That's the way you kind of have to work with the bears. It's very, very, very rare that they're going to just say, yep, we're switching to you. You're going to be our MSP, or you're going to be
costly for them, because it's
very costly.
Very costly. Any kind of change of and especially the due diligence part. So, and especially if you go to a big company, like we have to go through a process of due diligence. You have to make sure all our I's are crossed, our I's are dotted, T's are crossed, and they have to make sure that we're operating securely too before we even they open the door for us. So
Absolutely.
there's a lot of work, but I mean, it's worth it. It's just it takes time.
Right. And this is also something for you, Brian, with DoD contractors specifically. Again, those bears that you're going to go after, you're not going to get 5 a month. You're going to get 10 in your pipeline, and just work them constantly. Can we do a project? Let me prove it to you. How do we get in here? And it's a constant sort of drum that we're still here. We'd like to offer you this. Let me get you in with an audit. Let me get you in with a vulnerability assessment, Angela. Let me get you in with a specific audit for this particular owl that you got zapped with, Steve. You've got options, but the bears are going to be a very different conversation. And so as you map out what you need to do for the next quarter, and you don't have one in pipeline, so I know you're trying to get in. So first step is get in there. You're not going to close them in this quarter. You're probably going to close them if you get in this quarter. The idea is to get in this month and to start the conversation. If you start the conversation, okay, you could potentially get it sometime in the next 12 months. So that's how you have to look at your time allotment and your the way you're handling your time management. Now I'm going to switch gears. Let's go over to Angela, because she's used to the rabbits. When you are dealing with the rabbits and some, and I am not diminishing what you're selling, but I am saying you have been consistently churning a certain amount without a lot of expansion. And that's one of the solutions that we're going to start identifying, is how to expand, how to increase that revenue, how to get more, right? So when you're talking to those rabbits, how fast, typically, unless it's a friend of Pam's, how fast do you typically close?
I mean, I guess it could be anywhere between a few weeks or a few months.
Mm-hmm. So So the idea for those, in order to hit your target, and I'm not saying this in a doom and gloom kind of way. I'm just saying we have to identify a way to expand those services, because keeping up with the rabbits and constantly having to churn through every couple of weeks, your pipeline's got to be huge in order to make next steps, right? In order to hit next benchmarks, correct?
Right. Correct.
That's a lot. That's exhausting. You can't, like, that has to be something that we really focus on in this next quarter, because sure, if you have a bunch of rabbits, say we have 20 or 25 in the pipeline, even if we have 25 in the pipeline and you can close it, you can close 5 of those based on your conversion, but it's going to take anywhere from a couple of weeks to a couple of months. That right there eats up your quarter. So for me, as I'm planning my to-dos, my absolute first thing that I'm doing as a team is I'm sitting down my first week and I'm identifying how to expand the services so that I can start attracting the deer, which I think you guys have already started doing. So I'm sort of saying that as a gimme or a cheat code, because I think you guys already sort of started that and you've identified that this is a need. Now you got to put some meat behind it, right?
Yes.
Some muscle behind it. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So that's sort of the next step for you all, because if it's just a constant churn of rabbits, you're never going to get to the deer, and God forbid you ever look at the other thing. However, I will say with your connections and where we have Pam speaking, you've got ins with places like Google, you've got ins with places like Intel. You could potentially have an expansion opportunity just by using strategic alliances. And that might be what gets you to the deer. So that's an interesting way of looking at it if you guys have not done that yet.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Brian, I know that this is first quarter for you and you came in midway through the quarter. But you have been calling out to some people that went sort of cold. And what I'm saying, based on the deer, the rabbit, and the bear situation, how many deer do you have to follow up with?
Well, just getting into the trenches as we've started to, not many, but
Okay.
I'm jealous of anyone that sold to rabbits. I've never sold to rabbits.
Yeah.
It's always been bears and deers. But in this new capacity, there's going to be some rabbits. So, that's a good thing what you're saying. So I'm following you. I'm with you all the way. As far as deers, there was this one proposal which we just sent out. Again, this was the one I was telling you about that I came late to the party.
You reconnected. Did you reconnect?
I sent this guy a new quote, and
Okay.
myself, and we'll see if he responds. And I even said, how about we do lunch? I love to have an excuse to take people to lunch. Kevin laughed at my email. He's like, well, that's different. I said, well, that's how I do things, which is a much more personal, touch, introduction. Let's do lunch, that type of thing.
Yep. Because
I'm used to capturing the deers and the bears, and the bears, if you don't do lunches or dinners, you don't get. The deers, I like applying the same process to, but I'm really interested in how you get rabbits, because I'd love to get some rabbits for Kevin, because just so he can see some wins.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of those quick wins. That is primarily what I believe his SDR is calling into, is some of those rabbits, those quick pops.
That'd be terrific.
And they just need to be followed up with. Here's the problem, is if they're not being followed up with appropriately, and they're not on an 8-day touch strategy, and it's not a constant churn, that's when you're going to start not being able to hold yourself from deer to deer to deer. Because it does, while you're building pipeline, it can get really frustrating, especially when you're brand new into something. It can be almost disheartening. So what I don't want you all to do is, yes, we want to track by the quarter. Yes, we want to track to goals, but no, we do not want to do it in a way that is going to decommission you from a mental capacity standpoint. We don't want to get to a point where you're just not getting enough windfalls. We want to grow the business, but it's a fine line, right? And again, if I was at some of my former teams, they would be shouting at me from the rooftops right now of just put the pressure on, just put the pressure on. But that's not how we work anymore. And I think the post-COVID way of sales, if you're not jumping onto the bandwagon of a little bit more emotional intelligence from an internal motivation perspective, and you're not at least a little bit more compassionate in how we hit the next segments and the next benchmarks, I think you're going to lose. So when you hear a lot of hard pressed goals and, you know, people that are super stressed out, and you're seeing it all over LinkedIn, you're seeing the messages and everything, and people are really pushing at end of quarter, I think that, you know, there's always going to be an element of that. But I think now we've gotten to a point where it's a little bit more human, and people realize that, okay, if it's not today, there's next Tuesday, it's still okay, you know. But it's nevertheless important from a benchmark perspective and understanding where you're going. So, all right, I have spoken ad nauseum for like 40 minutes. So,
Hey, Alex, I got a question for you.
Sure.
So, just so we're all on the same page as far as defining things, I'm used to, like you said, doing quarters. So this is the end of quarter 3 in most people's minds. Q3 ends in September, and then you've got October, November, December, Q4.
Correct.
And then Q1 of 2024 begins. So is that how you are referencing things too? So we're on the same page as far as quarters and things like that. So
Absolutely.
we're about to enter Q4 actually this year.
Yep,
Okay.
we are about to enter Q4, and it's we'll get into planning a little bit. You know, we still need to talk about setting your goals and making sure that everything is set up to hit those goals. But Q4 is probably the most exciting quarter. When it really is. It's like, you know, people are going out on vacation, people are going out and, you know, celebrating, they're purchasing more than they probably should, just from a personal standpoint, right? Also, because of all the vacations and the family holidays and everything, your 3 months of work really is kind of shortened down at the end of the day to like a month and a half. And your typical 22 days of work weeks, or work days rather, in each month is really shortened to like 15. So people get a lot done end of year in very short order. That also means that people are making buying decisions and purchasing decisions and planning for the next year. So what we want to do as confident salespeople is we want to go in with that plan, and we want to be talking to people in anticipation that they're going to sign up with us for the next coming year. So we can get signature on paper and start planning out Q1. So if we're doing this the right way, we're looking at Q4 as this is the windfall, and we know that Q1 is going to be a little bit small or a little bit slower. So we need to plan this out. And cyclically in technology, I'm assuming you all have seen this before, but cyclically in technology specifically, you've got a real strong Q4. Q1, we start creeping up again, but it's not anywhere near what it was in Q3 or Q4. Then you've got a go up a little bit in Q2. Q3, like it just, well, Q2 basically kind of stops in August. People are out of town. It's the end of summer. Kids are going back to school. It's just, it's a lot, right? So July, August, that whole area. And it is slower in Q3. So you've got Q1 and Q3 are sort of the slower times. And so you got to make hay on Q4 and Q2. If you don't, you're going to miss out. So that's, and I'm not saying good sales can't happen during the others, but those are the ones that you've already planned out with that pipeline based on the bears and the deer, and you've been putting the work in. Make sense?
I completely agree with what you said, and those target benchmarks are 100% on, in my opinion, as well. So that's why, I mean, me coming into this position, Q4 is going to look grim, but my goal is to build towards, you know.
So not necessarily though. So here's the deal. You have enough you've got a couple of lists specifically to what you're doing from a government agency and contractor perspective. you know who is servicing the government, right? You've got a list, you've got sam.gov, you've got free lists happening, you can pull things, you can pull all the RFPs and see who's submitting for them.
Yeah.
So your push all of October in my mind, because you already have an SDR that's working the leads. You already have a LinkedIn campaign that is getting adjusted so that it can come in. You already sort of have that piece. I would start promoting more on your own personal LinkedIn. I would start doing a lot more thought leadership.
Mhm.
And I would start pushing your CEO as sort of the expert in the field. And this is across the board. This is for everybody. But what I would do from your perspective is I would start getting those DoD contractors specific to the DoD as well as other government agencies, but specific to the DoD. And I would start calling them and saying, okay, guys, let's get a session together. You know, this is my Christmas present to you, or depending on, you know, where you hail from, maybe it's Yom Kippur. I don't care, but whatever it is, it's our holiday present. It's our holiday present to you. And we want to go ahead and get you planned and ready to hit action in Q1. Now, what's going to end up happening is the DoD contractors, and if you know this already, just let me talk and then you need to shut up. But the DoD contractors, because they're getting government money, their spending is, if they don't use it, they lose it. So by end of December, they have to use certain allocated funds. So you're in this really cool space where you have a lot of opportunity. If you can just get them to answer the phone, you've got a ton of opportunity, and they have to use the funds by December 31st.
Yeah, I'm afraid, and this is just me talking out loud, that a lot of them might be running out of money by this point. Because like you said, they get allocated the money, don't they, at the beginning of the year? And or they get allocated the money in December to use for the next year.
Guaranteed they're not running out.
Okay, well, I like that guarantee.
Yeah, guaranteed they are not running out of money, because chances are they are basing it off of the previous year and or the forecast.
Awesome.
Some of those things are not being utilized anymore. Some of them have gotten retired, and if they don't use it, they will completely lose it. And sometimes it's just petty cash. Sometimes it's a P card where they can spend up to $13,000. Like, if you can give them something that is an end of year campaign, and this should be for everybody, because end of year spend still, even in private sector, is still a really good thing to go forward with, because it's an end of year campaign where you say, okay, let's plan for next year, and we can go ahead and take advantage of whatever budget you have left over. So Stacy, go ahead. I'm sorry. I saw a hand raised.
I was just going to point out that back in the day, not that I'm aging myself,
It's totally
I am, but Homestead Air Force Base was one of my clients, and my biggest month was December with them because they had to spend that money. But you touched on everything before I got to talk, so we're good. Thanks.
All right. All right. So we've got 15 more minutes. Is this beneficial for you all from a planning out your next quarter and finishing up this quarter? I do want to have a moment to finish out this quarter. So I want to see if anybody has anything that needs attention so that you can finish out this week strong. Because I know it's going to be a push, especially Angela, not so much a push for you for this week, but as you start tracking, you're going to start, it'll be interesting, because I want to see if you start putting pressure on yourself, not in a bad way. Just, I think you will, because I think I'm starting to get your personality a little bit like, ooh, need to track that up.
I do have a question, if it's okay,
Yeah.
but if anyone else has one.
No, go.
So Pam wanted me to ask this actually, and she actually met with Leanne. This was our number one in our pipeline, right?
Yep,
Okay, so she met with her on Friday, and now she has said, well, my husband's the money, he signs the dotted line. Yeah, can you send me another proposal? And literally, I think it would be in like the third or fourth proposal. So she did take back, we told Pam, Alex said, use her words back at her, try and get her to reiterate what she has said she needs. And she's like, I'm still interested, but my husband's the one who's going to decide, and you need to just send me another proposal. And Pam said, well, I think we've sent you a few. And she's like, no, just send it again. What do we do?
What do we do? All right. So this is where I get to be a little bit more of a hard ass, because I don't have a personal relationship with this woman. if somebody makes me send a proposal more than once, I don't necessarily want the business. So here's what I would do, because I don't like chasing, because if they're a deer and they're acting like a rabbit, I'll move on to the next. But what I would do in this situation, just because I've seen it in your pipeline already, and I think I know what's going on. Pam needs to have a hard conversation with her and say, okay, I am going to do a final representation of the proposal. I need to understand your buying cycle and what it takes internally for a purchase to be made, so that I'm setting expectations and bandwidth allocation inside my internal operations, because this is a service-based business, which means when you say you're going to do something, that means I'm allotting resources to that. And so then when you don't come across and you don't sign, and then there's another reason, that throws us off. So I don't want that to happen. And I want to make sure that I'm able to give you the best service that I possibly can. However, I need to understand your internal process now, so that I can be aware that this may be another 3 or 4 weeks out. And I need to know from your perspective, or if you can get her husband on the phone, that's even better. But from your perspective, when he sees this, is he looking on this favorably? Does he know he has to do this? Or is this going to be a whole nother process where we have to turn him into the champion? And if that's the case, when can we set up a meeting prior to me sending that proposal?
Okay.
Does that, I mean, I know
Yep.
it sounds like I'm being a bit of a hard ass, but now it's been 4 times. Like, now they're just
Yeah.
taking advantage of your time.
So
Yeah.
I was just going to ask, being that it's been 4 times, why not just turn around and say, let's get the husband on the phone? Since you keep pushing the decision off on him, I want to hear his thoughts. Let's make a meeting.
Well,
And she did say that. And Pam actually did say that. She said, well, I'd rather just have him on the phone, and she pushed it up. No, because they're all going to be at a conference next week. So she said, let's just meet all there.
And that's one of the reasons why I was saying, let's understand your internal process, because I understand that it's a family business. I understand the sons are going to watch and the husband's going to have to be the ultimate signature. But until just now, I didn't even know the husband was in the conversation. Right. So we need to understand. So if I'm a sales manager looking at this pipeline and I'm looking at this deal, I want to know, then what happens? Okay. He sees the proposal. Then what happens?
Okay.
Oh, he has to review it. Okay, so he's not bought in yet. What do we have to do to get him bought in? Well, we're going to have to discuss it. We're going to have to make another presentation. Okay, when we do that, then what happens? Then, he'll then discuss it with our financial advisor. I don't know, just throwing this out, right?
Yes.
Or we have a board of directors all of a sudden, right? So so you have to get all of that information ahead of time, so that you're never put in this situation. It is a pain in the butt, and it is so hard to come back from that. And then, yeah, you finally do, but then you're annoyed. Like, you don't want to do work for somebody when you're annoyed with them.
Okay. Thank you.
You got it. Anybody else on a close for this week? Or can we pull anything from next month into this week? Is there any way to bring it in for this quarter?
I may have a quick question. So we had a IT group. What's a dental practice IT group or whatever? They kind of took three clients away from us, or attempting to.
Oh yeah, you told me about this. This is the one that I really wanted to get in the weeds with.
Yeah, so I have a 2 p.m. meeting with her, with the owner. So I want to see if we can do like a co-managed deal for them, because I don't even think I think this is her first attempt at it, because the way she's like answering some of these questions, I think is like a first. So because she networked with this dental DSO corp or whatever, so she has kind of more of a way in, but their abilities and their technical scope is not so big. It's not like ours, we had 20 years experience, and she may be her first year. I don't know.
Right.
But I would just kind of like, how would I sell that to her? Like, how would I kind of go about like?
Okay, so let me just make sure that I'm understanding correctly before I tell you something entirely wrong. So she's the one that friend of a friend, somebody knew, she's now in, and now because it's a larger practice.
Okay, so okay, yeah, let me explain a little better. So
yeah.
Rhonda, we give her a name, is
Yes,
a
Okay.
She is works for Strain. Okay, so Strain is a company that it's a dental service organization management company. So basically what it does is it says, okay, doctors, you don't know what you're doing. You don't know how to manage this operation. If you give it to us, we'll manage it for you. We'll get you the best deals. We'll leverage our abilities and IT and all this stuff to get you the best working system, essentially. So you don't have to do any of that work, right?
Got
So
it.
that you can manage your organization properly. Okay. So
Yep.
Rhonda gives us a call. She said, okay, we're going to go ahead and take over the IT. But we've been doing the IT for a year, even though they've been in the contract. And because nothing is really gone, but she wants to manage it because, put it under an umbrella. That's fine. So how do we go about like saying, hey, because I think it'd be a good opportunity for both of us because, the opportunity is if they're going to continue to get more and more offices, how is she going to win the scale game,
Okay. So that's actually that's more business development than potentially the initial sale. So I really like this because what we can do, and this is actually exactly what is happening right now with you is what happened with a marketing company, one that you use, right? So remember I told you this story? So we were in where a marketing firm, one that Stephen uses, and I'm not going to say the name, but they're very good. So they were in a conversation with one of our clients. They were coming in and they were doing a lot of content and they were giving really great design services. Their SEO was good. They were doing the job. The problem is that they were not being strategic about it. And if there was an issue, or if they were not connecting all of the dots, just because their SEO is the best in the world, if it's not connected to a sales funnel or follow-ups, what good is it, right? So what we found out was that they sort of needed to be managed and put in the right direction. So I had a phone call with them and I said, hey, your content's great. Your designs are great. I have to roll back what you're doing from an SEO perspective in order for me to do this infrastructure for them. But because we're doing this, could you give me a quote or could you give them a quote on creating a better website or a better couple of landing pages so that while I can do this thing to get the infrastructure there, you can reallocate funds or we can reallocate emphasis. And that way, when it's ready, when the infrastructure is built, you can just turn it right back on. And they said, oh, that's a great idea, right? So it honestly, it made it seem like, hey, I'm trying to preserve this for you, but it looks like there's some holes. I don't know your particular instance with this woman, but are there any gaps that you see that she has already sort of missed in the strategy? Or do you want to get in there?
I mean, number one is going to be a scaling, right? Because we have a lot of people. We've been in the industry and we can scale pretty good. So that would be things. She's in Sacramento, so she's far away from SoCal from us, right?
Yep.
So that's a distance. That's another thing. And then it sounds like she's pretty green on the whole like management IT side because she's asking me questions like RPM tools and all these things. I'm like,
stop it.
Is this your first time? Like I'm so like questioning. So
and then of course you're like, well, I just coded my own. So
yeah. It's like proprietary system, stuff. But
okay.
And so I guess my question is, should I like gear the conversation to hearing how we can help her develop her company, or how should we do it?
So I would look at it from the terms of this particular customer and say, hey, I've noticed some things that I think you may run into, and I'd like to set up a call to discuss how I can save you some headache, as well as how we might be able to work together, and it'll be an easy opener for a conversation for some business development. However, we want to make sure that we're not highlighting that she's so green, but maybe saying, hey, just in case you need it, we have the ability to scale and give multi-tenancy and to show processes. And we've already mapped all of these these sequences or these SOPs, or we already use IT glue or whatever it is, right? Whatever the case may be that she doesn't have yet, come to her from that source of strength, and not necessarily mentoring, because you don't want to get, especially when you're dealing with a woman in tech, you do not want to get into mansplaining. It's, they're either going to be open to working together, but they don't want to be spoken to like children. So just be very careful with that. But when you have the conversation with her, come at it I think your gut is telling you the right thing, but we want to actually identify some of the opportunities in a way that is, I want to help you because I've noticed that you may be facing this, and I don't think you need to reinvent the wheel. Let's see how we scale together. I think that's the conversation, as opposed to we can save you headache. You know what I mean?
And another thing is, we also are specific. We work with specific software that they use, which is called Open Dental, right? So we have a very good
Civic knowledge.
Yeah, we know them pretty well. They're up in Oregon, very, very good company.
Yep.
So I would, and because we know it so well, we've helped DSOs scale, and have multi-tenancy and have all these clinics available and have all this way to expand without a lot of overhead. So I can sell that. So no, I'm pretty sure they have no idea what that is, what that looks like, and how that can. So I would like to kind of like, unless they're doing something else, I have no idea. But I would just kind of maybe
ask.
Table too.
Yeah. I would ask.
And
I would ask, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to speak over you, but I would ask and just say, hey, what are you doing for this, this, and this? And if she says, oh, shoot, we haven't really thought of that, or, oh, we're doing this, but you know that it's the wrong way, just, may I make a suggestion? And then talk with her like you guys are coming up with it together. I know I know it sounds like you're pandering, but I think it'll take the conversation the way you want it to go. Right. I'm not saying being manipulative, but maybe be a little manipulative.
Interesting. Well, yeah, I appreciate the help on that.
You got it. Let me know how it goes for sure. And then if you send me an email.
Well, I have a meeting
because it's in what, 2 hours?
Yeah, about 2 hours. Yeah, 2:00. So
I will be on a meeting, but I will be available on the platform and via email if you have a question in the middle of it. So
okay.
All right, guys, we have 2 minutes to go. Does anybody have anything else that they want hair on fire that we could potentially close for end of quarter? Okay. All right, guys, I'll give you your 2 minutes back, and then I will see you for office hours tomorrow and Wednesday, just so that you all are aware. Nick is going to run office hours tomorrow, but I will be there for a portion of the time, and then I'll be back on Wednesday. And as of next week, we are going to work on setting goals so that we finish off the quarter strong.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Bye.